Hi, this is the Kubeflow Notebooks meeting for the 27th of March, 2025. Uh, I just because it's happening next week, please, if you are going to KubeCon Europe in London starting next week, we do have a Kubeflow Summit day. You need an all-access pass to go. For more details, please see the Kubeflow website and click up here. Go to Kubeflow Summit. Tickets are pretty expensive late though, so hopefully you've got a really generous company if you haven't already got tickets. Uh, so that, but if you are already going, I'm not going, so sorry, but I envy you a little bit. But please message your join the I believe we have an internal like a CNCF Slack channel. Let me just check what it was because we linked it on the Kubeflow community meeting, which was Kubeflow Summit. So join that channel, Kubeflow Summit on the Kubeflow Slack. And for people who don't know how to join the Kubeflow Slack, go to Docs, About, Community, join the CNCF Slack. You can't join it you have to join it through this page. If you don't see this page, it's not going to work. You can't join with your email directly because that's just how Slack works. It's painful. Okay, I want to quickly do some updates on, we released 1.10.0 on Kubeflow. So I just want to do a quick update on the 1.0 stuff, and then we can go straight into the 2.0. Cool. Okay, so we did release, all of our current code is still living on the Kubeflow repo, but that will change after this release. We did cut a 1.10 release on this repo. It's not that different than the existing one, other than the user-facing notebook images were changed. Oh, actually, I take that back. This is a pretty big change, which is that we did migrate to GitHub Container Registry. It's not a user-facing change, but it does dramatically impact the manifests, obviously. So it's a big change. The reason we did that is because Docker is no longer doing free pulls, so you have to move effectively. So if you have any other projects, be aware of that. Okay. We'll talk about this more when Andy talks about it later, but probably I just want to highlight that what we're doing is we are migrating the old tags from Docker Hub as well, so that in the case that people don't want to or can't upgrade, they can spend a lot of effort to migrate their images on the registry to the new GitHub Container Registry ones that live on wherever this is under packages. And so it's quite painful to do. So yeah, who knows? At some point, it's probably easier to use the manifests from the new release and then just use our script to change the tags to the older tags. That's probably what I would suggest people do. In fact, maybe we should create a guide for that, honestly, at a certain point. Maybe I don't know, like, because that, you know what I mean? Because the manifests haven't it depends on how old your manifests are, I guess. Okay, that may not work. Anyway, we'll think about it. Okay, other than that, after this release, we will be migrating some stuff to where did I write KubeCon? Oh, wow. That's interesting. KubeCon. Okay. Yes, we're gonna migrate this. So, what is happening here? There. Okay. Yeah, I think some diff merging must have gone wrong. Because that's weird. Okay. Yeah, so we're going to migrate some commits to the new repo, which means that all the new code is going to be living under Kubeflow dashboard. It's already been scaffolded. So if you look at it, this will be where the dashboard code is. We're not going to move the notebooks code straight away for 1.0, but this is where this will live. Yeah, well, we'll talk about what that means later. Now, I do want to just, we'll go down to, yeah, let's look at overall tracking. I'm going to skip this because this is kind of like my update, even though it affects other people. So we'll talk about that later. So the tracking stuff, I just want to highlight how this doc works. We've got two kind of sections up the top, which are kind of common to every meeting. We have tracking and work streams, and then under each we have things. So like these are just trying to track overall kind of things that need to be done. I know that we also use GitHub, so it's kind of confusing, but sometimes it's easy just to have some notes about what's happening in here so that we can assign people. It's more about getting people and figuring out what they're blocked by here. And then the work streams are trying to find kind of chains of things that need to happen in an order. So like, for example, for the controller, and orange is like things that are really important, and yellow is things that are definitely important but happening after, and then blue is things that happen later. So like trying to get the controller finished, the first most important thing for that is getting the better development guide, which is using tilt so that you can develop locally without having to build and load the image into the image registry into the cluster every time. Then finishing virtual service reconciliation, and then this is for Notebooks 2.0, by the way. If you don't know what Notebooks 2.0 is, please see the GitHub issue, which is linked up here under tracking, and read the FAQ. Okay, but and there's other stuff there. And so, and then the other most important thing is getting the get list tables of workspace thing. I'm going to go with just table get list workspaces page. I don't know. And so that's the second most important thing. So I think Paulo has some updates probably with that, because I think I saw some pull requests being merged, which is good. And so let's kind of go through the stand-up now. And unless anyone wants to highlight anything else that they think is super important for 1.0 or 2.0, Eder, I want to thank you for some of the work you did on the GitHub container registry migration. It was very helpful and has hopefully resulted in less people having problems once they upgrade, but we'll see.
Yeah, on the weekend I'll give a try also on the release on the manifest to see if everything looks
actually,
okay.
that's actually a good call out. Yeah. So, and we did cut so again, Kubeflow and Kubeflow platform are kind of two different things, and I think there's always a lot of tension around what's what. But we did, so technically this is not all of Kubeflow, but this is one of the ways of using Kubeflow. And all the distributions are mostly derived from the manifests. But we did cut an RC. So if you do want to do a very basic kind of non-production install on your own environment just to confirm things work, you could do that by going to the tag RC3 and just applying these manifests, following this very painful guide.
Yeah, I'll do this on the weekend.
Cool. Again, not recommended for production use because this is just an aggregation of manifests, unless you're very willing to support yourself. Okay. Anything else anyone wants to highlight for Notebook 2.0 or 1.0? Of course, if it's something you've worked on, it's probably going to be covered under the stand-up, so. Okay, cool. I will just let Dimitri introduce himself again. So he didn't do it on the recording, but like, if he wants to say hi, he can say hi.
Okay, so yeah, my name is Dmitry. I'm from Ukraine and currently located in Spain. I had experience with ML platform development in the past few years ago, also with Kubernetes separators development with operator framework. Yeah, I'm a software engineer in small company Adzeman. And my primary skill actually is DevOps, but also Python and a little bit Go. And yeah, I'm interested in contribution to Notebooks 2.0.
Cool.
Yep.
I think you're also in SSH access stuff, which is great because that's something that we would love to have, but it's more of a nice to have than an absolute must have. So if you can if we can figure out and agree on a design, even if it takes a wee while, that's fine. You know, like that's the goal. Cool. So we can do a very since we've got a bit of time, maybe we'll spend like 5 minutes. I'll just quickly overview what that is, and then do you have a specific plan or do you have anything there? Like, so we obviously we wrote out some possibilities around jump boxes and things like that. Like so pretty much I'll just highlight what the problem is for people. So effectively right now, Kubeflow spawns notebooks that are running in pods. Notebooks 2.1 or whatever might also support Kubevert VMs, but the whole idea is the same, is that these are Jupyter / VS Code / RStudio / whatever else things that you're accessing through a web browser. Not all services. Sometimes it would be necessary for you to connect to the instance through SSH. There are routing considerations that make the networking of that quite challenging, and obviously doing it securely, because SSH is a very dangerous thing, if you know what I mean. Like there are scraper bots everywhere on the internet, and everywhere, a lot of a lot of attackers look for SSH because it's very easy to break in a lot of cases. So so there's a lot of security considerations to doing this, but the idea would be that you can use features like remote VS Code, JetBrains Gateway, and other things which let you have the experience of accessing it through an actual desktop application, but submitting things to the cloud, which is running on your Kubernetes cluster with presumably GPUs or whatever else you're doing. So Dimitri had some ideas, I think. I'm interested to know just if you have a very brief summary, or if you don't want to do that now, that's fine too.
So, to be honest, I have more like a question. Yeah, I wanted to start a discussion here, so I don't know if we have time. But yeah, my primary concern is with this security consideration. Yeah, because Kubeflow is not a security platform, and yeah, there were some challenges. There are some challenges to block by IP, for example. Yes, so because depending on Kubernetes configuration, the cluster configuration, the source IP may be not even be in the system. Yes, so if it's a
it won't be
default,
like you have to assume
yeah,
that,
it won't
that you have to assume that
yeah.
people are accessing it through an ingress or a NAT or something that just makes it impossible to in all cases identify the source IP.
Yeah, so it's not. Yeah, I would say that if we can agree that security is responsibility of the cluster administrator, maybe we don't need to care so much about that, and at least in the Kubeflow.
Well, I mean, there's other problems though, which is like you can just straight up DDoS things, right? You know what I mean? Like, so, like, not DDoS, like, sorry, that's the wrong word, brute force. It's like normally you'd use fail to ban or something on a public service, right? Whereas
to be able to block something, I need to have an IP. Yes, because I may end up blocking my own load balancer IPs. Yeah, so
yeah, and also that could be a malicious attack, right? Let's say I'm on a corporate network and I know that they're using it, right? You know what I mean? Like that's a form of attack as well. Of course, the reason why this is less of a problem for web services is because the only ingress point is an ingress, right? Or a load balancer. And that has itself its own security systems, which are dependent on whatever platform you're using. If you're using Amazon, you know, L7 load balancers often have DDoS protections on them and things like that. If you're using Cloudflare or whatever else. So like it's, these things are, but HTTP routing is not TCP routing. And also we do a lot of HTTP based security in Kubeflow for the web, because it's all website stuff. So like you've got cookies, you've got like OAuth 2 proxies and stuff, but obviously none of that is how you access SSH. The problem that we're trying to really solve is that in the end, you do need to be able to do an SSH something command on the host, because all the SSH tooling assumes that that's how you're accessing it. So like even if we're doing some complicated proxying with TCP proxies or jump boxes or other things, I feel like this SD-WAN thing may be the only serious solution in a lot of cases. This is actually how VS Code commercially does it, their thing, effectively just using their own thing as a proxy. You know what I mean? So like effectively what this means from a routing perspective is this approach is you connect to something in the cluster, which then routes you to the pod. This approach is the thing in the cluster, the pod, connects to a service externally, creates a VPN tunnel, which then you access from your host. So like this.
Okay. What they achieve with that?
Which way around? What, sorry?
So this, it's like, okay, so let me, if we are using Istio, yeah, I don't know if we need to consider.
We do use Istio.
Istio less. No, I mean, we support kind of Istio enabled faults. I don't know, do we need to consider that even in the development?
So right now,
just
that is a huge point of discussion, and honestly, something that we will be discussing more in Notebooks 2.0 later around what it would even mean to ship a version of Kubeflow Notebooks 2.0 that doesn't need Istio. You know, like so this, like if that's even something we want to attempt, because obviously I think there's a lot of, you know, the core differentiator is that Kubeflow Notebooks supports every IDE, whereas Jupyter Hub only supports Jupyter, and Jupyter Hub is also less suited to Kubernetes and GPUs and stuff. But like, this is the core differentiator. Like it's like when people are comparing Kubeflow Notebooks to Jupyter Hub, when they're choosing between the two, Jupyter Hub is its own platform completely. You know what I mean? It's like it's not easier to deploy, but it's possible to deploy on its own without Kubeflow platform with the dashboard and the OAuth2 proxy, you know, and Istio. So like there's some debate as to whether we would support first other service meshes. I doubt that personally, or support a way of abstracting the service mesh, even if we still use it internally, away from the user so that they don't think about the rest of the so that there is a standalone. You know, right now we're the only significant Kubeflow app that doesn't support standalone deployment. You know, you can't deploy notebooks standalone because fundamentally it doesn't make a lot of sense to deploy notebooks standalone because notebooks are inherently an authorized RBAC driven thing, right? Everyone shouldn't be able to access everyone's notebooks. That doesn't make any sense. So anyway, coming back to that, I'm really interested to see your, like, if like Dimitri, we don't have a lot of time to talk, so probably we'll close this conversation for now. So I just want to highlight for you, if you're really interested in working on this, I would love to see this thing solved. So like if you can think of a third option, I'd be very interested. I'd love to see an analysis of just like the alternatives here, like because these two feel like the two like logical pathways. Like this one obviously only works if the pods can access the internet, so that's another problem as well. Of course, we could host a version of Tailscale is an open source project. It's very possible that we could create a Tailscale endpoint that runs within Kubeflow and then just use the Tailscale client to connect to it.
What we want to achieve, like Istio supports TCP routing. Why we need all these like listed features? Why jump? And it would be the single entry
the idea
point
is that you
into the system.
don't expose the TCP direct, because the problem is, again, the goal has to be that you can run on your laptop or wherever you're running this, SSH, some IP address, and then get access to the notebook, right? The only way you can do that without a VPN is by having some route that goes directly from your laptop through the public internet or your internal intranet VPN. That's also what I'm saying. So in that case, maybe the VPN is your corporate VPN, you know, that's fine, right? So like in that case, that would be fine in that case. But then some people do host Kubeflow on the public internet, so that like, yeah, it's like what I'm saying is understand, like maybe these are actually the same option in technicality. Maybe you're right. But what I'm saying is, I just would love to see a proposal, and I'm happy to work on it with you, and so we can think about, like, you know, and then even if we choose jump boxes, it's like, okay, how many jump boxes are there? Is there one per notebook? Is there one per namespace? Probably more likely to be one per namespace, you know. And then how do we manage security keys on the jump box? And SSHing it then also introduces a latency problem because you're jumping around through things. But I mean, of course, you're already doing that if you're using the ingress anyway. What is one more hop, right? You know, like it's kind of, you're already going through the ingress, then going, you know, you're in a service mesh already. So like your network speed is already not that fast. So like.
Okay, one small last question.
Sure.
So if it's Istio egress gateway virtual service TCP routed, and then we have a pod, is it a non-stop or is it a stopper? Yes, so there would be a requirement that ingress gateway should support TCP. So it would be like behind the network load balancer or something like that.
So the problem is a lot of people are currently exposing Kubeflow to, like, I know it's kind of deploykf specific, but like deploykf kind of is a way that people use Kubeflow. That's one I made, so disclosure there. But it's free, obviously, but like, so most people are not using, and from my understanding of the hundreds of thousands of people using this, most people are not using load balancer. They're using L7 routing of some kind. So L7 obviously does not support TCP because TCP is an L3 or 4, whatever, 4 layer, right? No, that's lower than that. But what I mean is, so like an L4 load balancer is the typically naming convention given to one that would be able to route a TCP connection, whereas L7 will reject anything that's not an HTTP connection because it's an HTTP routing system, you know? And so like load balancers, they service, well, maybe this, and I think we talked about, maybe this feature only is supported if you do these ones, right? But that means that people are going to struggle because the reason they use these L7 ones is for security reasons on the HTTP, and also to do things like, oh, I don't want to deal with my own SSL certificates. I don't want to deal with, or many companies, they require that they use Nginx controller to access the cluster. You know what I mean? Like if you're not on the cloud, this is probably how every service is accessed on it. So you start running into issues where this feature is not usable by most people. I know that this makes the problem impossible to solve. That's kind of why it's not solved. So like, but as long as we agree on the problem and the solution, anyway. So let's continue the discussion on the thread. thank you for
Yeah,
being interested in
okay.
helping this. I'm sure there's other people as well, especially we could call it out at KubeCon as well. There might be other people who want to join. So,
Yeah, and Dimitri, I have people at Red Hat in the security that they are also interested in helping on this. They are specialized in security. If you want to connect to the review, the design, and the security perspective, I can hook them because they're
Yeah,
going to
sure.
start to engage more and more with us here.
Yeah.
And there
So
are
yeah.
guys that just do this.
So I think as long as we can, so there is the possibility that the answer to this feature is that we shouldn't have it, right? There is the possibility that it maybe just doesn't make practical sense for some reason. In which case we should figure out why people want SSH access and solve that in a different way. But like, I guess if you're writing a proposal or just discussions, I guess the questions are, why do we want SSH access? I think we listed some of them in the issue. What is the characteristics of the support, like SSHing from a laptop that has access, makes sense. Then like security implications and then implementation, like so these kind of things, right? Cool. Let's move on. Sorry. Okay. So I will just do a quick update. What I did. So we talked last week about supporting secrets as volume mounts in the controller. I've implemented that in the controller. It hasn't been merged yet, but we can probably merge it today. Effectively, we just added a new field under spec pod template volume secrets. This is under a workspace. Effectively, the only solution that makes sense is to mount the whole secret. Well, you can mount parts of secrets, but the first initial version is mount the whole secret as a folder. So each key in the secret becomes a file in that folder. The reason for that is Kubernetes does not propagate updates of secrets as environment variables or as individual subpath mounts. So the reason for this feature is so that users, when they're spawning a notebook, can say, hey, I have a secret that I don't want to store in the notebook, a database credential, a get credential, something, an API key, an OpenAI key, whatever, right? Whatever it is, that you shouldn't store in the notebook. So instead, they prompted saying, hey, do you want to, you prompt the user saying, hey, don't store secrets in the notebook itself. Click this button, create a new secret, which creates a secret in the namespace, and then it mounts the secret locally. And then as long as they mount it at a consistent path, their code can access it consistently. And it will even be updated every time the secret gets updated. So if they're using external secrets or other operators to update the secrets from a secret store, that will work. So the steps to implement, in my mind, are update the CRD. I've already made the PR to do that. Update the backend to obviously add the secrets section to the update and get payloads. Then this is actually a bit more complicated than it might look, because as soon as you start interacting through the cluster controller runtime with secrets, and from my experience with helping maintain external secrets, you start caching every secret on the cluster, which is a security risk, but more seriously, it actually is a risk to the controller itself, because if you're in a really big cluster, there might be gigabytes and gigabytes and gigabytes of secrets, which means our backend controller is suddenly going to use 10 gigabytes of memory, and also take 10 minutes to start up as it tries to slowly consume all the secrets into the memory of the controller. So we need to be very careful when we're reviewing code in this thing. So I think we need to put an integration test which creates like a few gigabytes of secrets on the cluster just to confirm, because it's so easy to accidentally screw this up. Unless we take option 2, which is we just disable the list watch cache for all secrets, and then only use a metadata cache, which probably is what we'll end up doing, to be honest. Because most of the time we don't care about the internal secrets. And this is also another reason why the first version does not support per key mounting, because we can't do any validation without looking at the whole secret, which means I have to do a get on the whole secret. You know what I mean? But with the metadata only get, we can just get the name of the secret to check it exists. Now, from the UI people who are in the meeting perspective, this means we're going to need a new update to the spawner, obviously, which prompts users to create a new secret when they're creating a new workspace and or mount an existing one. So that means obviously using the APIs from the backend to do that. And then also, I think we probably do need, before shipping, a secrets tab in the same way that we have a volumes tab, just because this is it's both for admins and other things, and the ability to like see what secrets already exist effectively without having to go through the create a new workspace flow. We can obviously discuss those steps later, but the pull request is already here. So I mean, after this meeting, I think we probably can get this one merged, if we all agree with this one here, which also one other thing I did change, which is important to know, the controller was previously not handling some states So for the front end to correctly report that the state of the workspace is bad, we try and extract information about why into the state message, which is a field in the thing, in the status of the workspace. Previously, there was a situation where the error was not related to scheduling, so the pod existed but was pending. Now the problem is Kubernetes does not expose information about why a pod is pending in the pod itself. It only exposes it through events on the pod, similar to how issues with creating a stateful set are exposed on events on the stateful set as well. Issues with creating a pod, are exposed as events on the stateful set itself. So we already solved that problem, but we then ran into another problem, which is that we only reconcile the CRD of workspace when a pod is updated or any of the things that it's meant to be reconciling are updated, not events. You should never watch events in a controller. It's very dangerous. There's a lot of events that happen in a cluster, and there's no way to distinguish the ones you should be watching from the ones you shouldn't really. So you should only do it if you have to, is maybe a better way to say it. So we did find a novel solution here, which is very briefly described in this, which is that because errors relating to missing secrets are surfaced through pod events, we now extract pod events when disseminating the state message, but those events might not exist when we first reconcile the workspace. E.g., let's say you create the workspace, it was valid, you tried to mount a secret that doesn't exist. Kubernetes schedules the pod, which takes a few seconds. So we've already reconciled the pod by the time that happens, but the event has not been pushed yet to the etcd, meaning we don't know why it's pending, and we've recognized that it is pending, so the state is pending, but we just sit there waiting for 8 hours because that's the next forced refresh in the default controller loop. So instead, what we do now is, because there's no update events on the pod itself. So now what we do is, if we have a pod sitting in pending, and that's the reason why the workspace is pending, we just constantly reconcile the workspace every 15 seconds, hoping that eventually something will be an event will be created on the pod that tells us why the pod's in pending state. So this should also affect not just secret mount errors, but volume mount errors and other really weird edge cases that Kubernetes might handle, like kind of memory pressure, kind of, or maybe even like GPU related operator issues, like, oh, the GPU on this node is faulty, like things like that. So like it should be able to handle weird errors like that now, which were previously only propagated through events. So I just wanted to highlight that change. So if anyone ever sees when they're working on the controller, bad behavior where something is reconciling every 15 seconds and they don't expect it to be, it's probably because of this, and we might have screwed something up. So I just wanted to highlight that. You want to add anything, Eder, about that, or?
No, we just need to test this, yeah. And the why, yeah, but let's not talk about the why right now. With the
like a new UI tab.
Yeah.
Also, I wanted to highlight that we will be bringing the volumes UI into the workspaces UI as well. So right now we have a separate one in Notebooks 1.0 that uses the old 1.0 code. If we're already making a separate UI for secrets, volumes are almost identical in terms of process. All it means is that we just need to update the backend API to support volumes, and then so what I'm saying is, for the front end people, when you're designing this, design maybe a generic table concept, if that's possible, for CRD based resources that are not special, like secrets and volumes. And then maybe we should have some reusable code there. I'm not, that's up to you guys how you do it, but I just wanted to highlight that there might be other resources in the future. So for example, just imagine any other kind of resource we might think of in the future. Like, I don't know, there's some interesting stuff happening with GPUs, but like in the future, to schedule a GPU, you might need to create a special kind of resource, just to say
yeah. I think we
like
can move forward on the next one. Otherwise, we don't have time for people.
Yep.
And if you just leave me last one, if you can go, we want to start, Paulo?
Oh, do you want to skip first? Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Hey.
Okay, we merged a lot of things here.
Start. Yeah, can you hear me well?
Yep.
Yeah, so those three are related to the workspace creation UI. First one is the kind selection first step. I believe we already talked about it last meeting. Then the second, I added the step for the pod config that we talked about, not the content yet, just the step on the top, which we didn't have in the first version. And then on the third PR, I added the content for the image selection
Cool.
with the checkbox filters on the left.
Awesome.
Yeah, there was another PR for the creation UI. I believe Jenny will talk about on her turn.
So to ask you the 3 questions, so that's what you've been working on. Is there anything else you've worked on?
No, not so far. I'm starting the pod config step now, the content. So that's my
And
next
nothing's
step.
blocking you? Is everything the backend ready for you to do that?
Yeah, the backend's ready. There is a PR regarding the call to the backend API from the front end from Yossi. So it's pending a rebase. I already asked him to do a rebase so we can merge it.
Cool.
But it's not blocking me at this point.
And so you'll be
still
working on
the
what
front.
next in the next week?
I'll be working on the pod config step now.
Cool. Awesome. Is there, and so that pull request will be it's not raised yet, I assume.
Sorry?
Have you raised the pull request yet? Is it ready for review or not?
No, I'm still working on it.
Cool. Awesome. Anything else you want to add?
No, that's it. Thank you.
Cool. Jenny.
Hello. Cool. So I have that PR that just got merged for MUI theming support for workspace creation. So yeah, maybe if you zoom in a little bit there, you can see what sort of changes were made a bit better. If you, I don't know.
Oh, which one? Oh,
just-
can I zoom in? You mean? Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, thank you. Okay, awesome. So yeah, so this is before for the create workspace, and here it's all using Patternfly under the hood. So these are all Patternfly components, and this is at the top there, you see the progress stepper, which we talked about last time, and also this sort of selectable card view situation too. So that's all Patternfly, and then is there the after
Oh, yep.
there as well? Is on the other tab. Oh, sweet, awesome. So yeah, that's the after. You can see so now the progress stepper has been themed to match the MUI progress stepper. They do it a bit differently. They have the numbers in there, like inside the little steps, and they have the blue, and they have like another arrow, like a checkbox situation too. Same with the cards there. Also, you see the like they have that gray sort of selectable state instead of the radio buttons that Patternfly does. So yeah, that's just super cool. We're using Patternfly under the hood for all of this. And the cool thing about Patternfly is its flexibility. So you see there kind of like what you can do with it. The fact that we can just apply simply like a couple overrides to the style sheet in order to like get that very similar MUI look and feel is really awesome. So yeah, that's what we have going on there. And next steps will be to continue theming this workspace creation wizard. I know Paolo has a couple more like workspace steps coming in that he's working on next. So I'll be theming the components that go in there. And yeah, I don't know, Paolo, I think you mentioned there's another component that's on deck too. So I'll be working on that as well.
One thing to note is that at least what I was envisioning is a 1x1 image that is the same width as the card. And this, so my assumption of like the structure of these is that this will be short, and we have actually quite strongly limited the number of characters for the title and things, but expect this section to be like a markdown big section. You know what I mean? Well, you don't see it as markdown. You'll see it as HTML, obviously. But so the user can put links and other things there, but it's expected to be like a block of text. So there's a question as to whether how you want to deal with. We did constrain it at, I don't remember the exact number of characters. It's not crazy. It's like a couple thousand characters, I think, but it can still be, I think, a couple thousand characters. I think maybe 1,000 characters. So it could be quite long, is what I'm trying to say. Obviously, we don't want to do weird things like scrolling elements, I don't think, but so like I would expect cards like if you disagree from a design perspective, that's fine. I was thinking like cards that look maybe something like this, not like exactly like this, but a 1x1 square with the logo, with a name, and then
Matthew, if you go back in the picture, this information that you'll be on the right.
Okay, so you're thinking okay, so you're thinking like a short description as well as a big description over here?
Yeah.
I still
just
think this
remove
needs to be like I still think the cards should be taller than they are wide. I know that sounds weird. I just wonder, or maybe not. I don't know. Who knows from a UI perspective? Maybe this is fine. This is interesting from a pop-up perspective. I don't know. It's interesting. I don't know. I guess we can try both. In the end, because I expect the sort of things that users will describe in here would be just basic stuff like, what is this kind, and then maybe they'll link to an internal document, maybe they're Jira or something. I don't know. But maybe clicking elements. We also haven't agreed that clicking elements should be there yet, I think. That's, I guess, for you to decide whether you want to have links within the links. Like, say a user wants to, and that also applies to image and pod configs more so. I'd say that applies to image and pod configs more so, because that one I think is very likely to need them. Like, this image config has a link to a Jira that has lots more very detailed information about what's in this pod or something.
We can talk about more of this later on with the mockups on too.
But anyway, great work.
But the link should be on the right if there is links on the description.
Or maybe we could even have a field which is like documentation, right? Like a list element. So like we structure the data in a way that then the UI can format and then only have text in the description field, something like we can, the admin can be forced to structure things or something, I don't know. But again, that's more important to the image and pod configs. But also, is there a reason why there's no borders, or is that just like because it's the first version?
Yeah, that's a good question. That's just how that's how MUI styles their cards. There's selectable cards. They don't apply borders. It's just sort of like when you hover it gets a bit darker, but there's no borders in general on the cards.
Interesting. Is that okay? Interesting. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, the pattern fly one look better. We agree.
Yeah.
Yeah. See.
Which one's better?
No, the pattern fly one. That is the border with the border.
Yeah. So which one? So yeah, I'm just trying to figure out here. Like, so which one is the new and which one's old?
This one is material Y.
So yeah, the second one was, and this is pattern fly that you're looking at now.
And so I guess well, obviously this is not even close to release, so it's fine. It's just like yeah.
Yeah, but what Jenny means that if you don't do this in this way, we are going to do some customization on the top of the material Y because their design system look like this. Is that correct, Jenny?
Yeah. So this is just applying those standards, what they're applying, the styling, same that they're doing over there.
Cool. But yeah, we can talk about figuring out what to do with the styles later. But I assume this is mainly just around changing the style itself, right?
Yep, we can customize.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I mean, that's good. Styling debates always take forever, so thanks for that. Anything is blocking you? What are you going to work on next? Things like that?
No, everything's all set for now. Yeah, Paolo's been doing great work and getting those features in. So just when as he's getting those in, I'll be working on theming more components there.
Cool. Dave?
Hey, can you hear me?
Hey.
So I'm working on the viewer for the workspace kinds page. I created the pull request. Paolo already reviewed that. I got some comments and I'm fixing them right now. So I believe it will be ready the beginning of next week. After that, I will work on the mock for the view details for the workspace kind.
View detail. Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah, the view details.
Is there an issue for that? Work on the...
Maybe I will take this issue next.
For the workspace. Is it workspace kind or workspace?
Workspace kind. For the workspace, it's already ready.
I mean, it's not really finished on the workspace one, but it's kind of it exists,
yeah,
I guess.
It's not finished. Yes, we have some.
Is there an issue for this?
I don't know. I know that Yael Fischel, she's working on the logs tab. The YAML tab is already.
This is workspaces,
merged.
and then I don't think we've got an issue for workspace kinds yet. Okay, cool. Anyway, awesome.
Yeah, we don't have it.
Yeah,
we might want to create that.
If you don't, I create that. Just ping me.
I don't think there's one. I'm just checking. Well, I can check it. Maybe it's also listed here, but I doubt it. Yeah, no, it's not. So we should probably think about how we structure issues as well. Anyway, also as a side note, we did add an issue template. So if you feel like it's a bit of it's not necessary while we're developing 1.0 to use the template, you can just use the blank issue. Feel free to do that. See here, so if you these are for users mainly. We did leave the blank issue enabled though, so you can just do a blank issue if you feel like it. It's not, these are, this is once we've got a product, feature request, Okay. Cool. Anything else you want to add? Anything blocking you?
No.
Cool.
Thank you.
Andy?
Yep. Thanks to Al for timely feedback. I'm kind of piecemeal turning to that developer guide PR, getting tilt set up, found just a couple minor issues in the make file. I'll turn back around to that probably tomorrow, hopefully get through the rest of it on there. And then the other big update been looking at is just getting this like migration for these notebook images done. I have a repo, shared a link. I'm not actually copying the images yet. I plan this afternoon to plumb that logic in there, and then kind of go from there. So I'm hoping by end of day today or tomorrow, I can run this, and more importantly, get someone else to run it to make sure it's not just a works on my machine situation, but nothing blocking, progressing well.
Cool. And so what is it looking okay?
Some like issue, like some of the stuff, me being on Mac and just some like errors in the script. I haven't actually got to it deploying in Tilt yet. So we're just kind of working around the integrity of the instructions.
Is also another pro tip. If you're using macOS, probably it's related to the fact that Bash is very old on macOS. So almost
I have all that stuff skinned and homebrewed, and so it's definitely not related. There was just some fundamental issues in the make file. We're working through it. But I haven't
like
got to the point where it's like deploying in. No, we're like fixing things. Some commands were kind of wrong, prereqs not quite aligned, things of that nature. But I mean, that's all documented here. But Al's giving feedback on stuff, so now I just need to, pivot back to it to get through hopefully the real stuff. I think all the infrastructural issues should be resolved now. But I'll keep grinding on it.
Awesome. And I think you're also working on this image thing.
Yes. And so like I said, I do have commits pushed to that repo right now. It does do stuff, but it doesn't copy images yet. But I have a README there, that kind of thing. If people have thoughts, I'm a big fan of like JQ and JSON files to drive the configuration and all of that jazz. So you can run it right now. It's only a read-only capacity. It'll dump out a file to show that it's like finding all of these things. And this afternoon, I'll be working on actually like copying images and retries and tracking state and all of that jazz.
Cool. So once I really want to try and run that script over the weekend, or maybe as soon as possible. So I mean, how close do you think it is?
I'm working on it right now. I'm hoping like another 2 or 3 hours and I'll feel good about it. I already warned Eder I was probably going to bug him tomorrow at some point just to see him run it too, and then I'll yell. But like I said, there are a couple prereqs, making sure Scopio is installed, things of that nature. So if people want to go out to that repo to check this out and just run this script, it should bark if you're missing some of the prereqs, and there are links in there that tells you where to go get it. So if you could, if anyone that wants to test this, just try to run this thing to make sure it exits with a 0 status code, that would be good. Or yell at me if it doesn't, and I will fix that. But like I said, I think it's just like a couple hours this afternoon just to make sure I'm copying the image, updating state so we can do this like resume style behavior, that kind of thing. But also, I think all the main pieces are there.
Also, by the way, if you want to, the deploy KF script is pretty, one of these sync scripts here, it might help a little bit. So like for example, I've got this code here, which ensures that you're running the latest version of Bash, because the script requires the Bash, and otherwise people get confused. This is just how I'm detecting various commands. I've also got colors and stuff.
So I that kind of stuff is already, I'm not doing color output yet, but in terms of making sure you have the required things on your machine and erroring without doing anything, all that is
I mean, obviously this doesn't need to be like a beautiful script. I mean, it probably is actually I'll take that back. All the other working groups are probably going to need to use this as well. And
the way this has been designed, it's just you provide, if you want to open up the README, we won't rabbit hole on this. I'll go 30 more seconds because I am interested in design feedback. So if you go down to this example configuration file, right? So this is the big thing where container registry source target, right? So this isn't just, and so we're doing this for Kubeflow notebooks, but the intent here is other people could use it if they wanted to, right? So anyways,
what do you actually? So what's the actual? If we forget about how you've implemented it, what is the actual flow of the code? Is it checking the hashes of the images are the same, or is it just checking that the tag exists?
Right now it is just tags. So I dip in and grab the manifest. If we want to do stuff with hashes, we certainly could, but right now it is just finding. It's first scanning to find all tags, and then it'll inspect the raw manifest of those tags to figure out if it's multi-arc or not.
Is it kind of that gives you where you You know, where you get the
it's parsing that, and then here, if you don't mind me, I can share really quick to show you what I'm looking at right now. I think you have to let me.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I can stop it.
All right, now is it going to? It didn't let me choose. Okay,
we should definitely share this with the rest of the community, to do it. Actually, running the script on the other ones is going to be a little bit painful because I'm the admin of all of the container images for our ones, but I probably can't push to the other ones. You know what I mean? So
yeah, okay. So I'm gonna have to like restart something to screen share. It's fine. I'll post an update in Slack. But basically, Matthew, I get a list of repo, tag, platform, and then obviously I just have a magic asterisk in case it's not multi-arc aware in terms of the platform. And then I'll just run through, check to see if it exists in the target, check to see if my state file is already listed as migrate. If both of those checks fail, run the Scopio copy command for each platform. And then, you know, implement some retry logic.
I've always wondered if we could do the marker files by just doing them based off the list as well. The reason why I actually, by the way, I just want to give you context. The reason why I couldn't do that with ECR, because that was the previous migration that I was doing, was because ECR is not an OCI compliant registry. It does not support this page.
So even with the, like, I have a solution to marker files here. It's, and again, if you flip back over to the README if you want, but there's this like JSON state file. If you scroll to the, oh no, it was in Slack. Never mind. I didn't go the marker file route because I like kind of whatever.
Could you use this as a marker file? Is what I'm saying. Like, could you use these tags or something? You know, the fact that
essentially I'm just using, if I write out the media type in the platform, that's an element in a map, and then I have a status field of, you know, I haven't even defined what all those statuses are, but complete would mean that we've moved it. We can, you know, sort number of attempts, retries, and other kinds of things. But I'm essentially driving off of that. Yes.
Cool. Awesome. If you want, we can try writing some of it tomorrow, maybe, or do you want to do it later today, or?
Yeah, so let me sync with Eder first, and then tomorrow as like just a dry run to stuff, and then I'll kind of, you know, reach out to you in Slack tomorrow and talk about.
And I think we should create a version of our manifest, because we're going to be the core problem for a lot of things. I just want to come back to this. People get people's ideas, because notebooks and central dashboard are going to be the core issue for a lot of people, and they're not going to be able to upgrade to 1.10 until, because it's not even released yet. We might want to provide a patch release of the at least 1.9 branch that updates the manifests to use the new GHCR image sources. Because at least 1.9 is functionally identical largely to 1.10. And so I think that is important. I don't think we should do 1.8, but
I think 1.9 and 1.9 will be nice for the community to do the same work.
And but we can effectively merge our pull request that we made into there, because the main thing we changed is just all the manifests, and then we can get even if we don't cut a tag release on the thing, we can get the manifest repo to sync in that tag to the branch for the 1.9 of the manifests. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't know. We'll talk about it, but yeah, I think we should do that, because otherwise.
But the first step is to have the script, publish the image. As soon as we have 1.9 image, publish it. We can go and do this, right? This is the order.
Yes. So we need to mirror all of the images. Yes, to 1.9, and we should encourage the other distributions, the other working groups to do the same. I think, but we're going to be the core issue. I think. For
and my suggestion. As soon as we have the script working for us, we should go for the Kubeflow community and tell them that we solve and give this as a starting point. One of the guys that should be interesting is the model registry guys, that we can use them as a guinea pig to reuse the script. Not that we should do the work and just throw them in the script, say this is how we did it.
I mean, the biggest problem.
Yeah, so I have a. Oh, sorry, go ahead, Matt.
I thought the biggest problem is GCR. Sorry, KFP. What KFP used GCR though, didn't they?
I think so.
Yeah, so they're fine. It's really just us. We're going to cause, like, effectively every Kubeflow install in the world is going to break otherwise. You know what I mean? That's kind of the problem, right?
Yep.
Of platform.
So yeah, I have a thread in our Kubeflow Notebook Slack channel. I'll just keep updating as relevant information comes out throughout the day. But like I said, I hope here just a couple more hours of focus time I'll have this working. Obviously, for my testing, I have like a Quay repository. I can't like push to where we need these to be in GHCR, but I'm kind of, simulating this as closely as possible. Once I get good results on that, I'll have Eder fact check it, and then we'll open it up to anyone and everyone.
And Luciano also offered help to
Yeah,
use
I
his
mean, if
company
you've got,
network.
I mean, I've got access to pretty fast networks as well, and my tokens already have permission to do the push. But certainly, if we start running into rate limits where I can only do half the migration or something, I'll reach out to you. Listen.
And I mean, there are just so many. I'm
Look,
just looking at KFAM right now, and KFAM has 156 images, right? So it's just the rate limiting thing is the real crux here of, there's just going to be
don't
a
do
lot.
dot star. To be very clear, just don't do dot star. Do like, so I see in your example you got dot star. Just only do the only don't do the development images. Just
So I mean,
do
I'm not like for me, I'll do dot star, but like the filtering works. So when you go to run it, Matthew, you can pick and choose whatever.
You can just do when you're testing it, like I mean, to make sure that it actually applies the filter correctly, but just anything starting with V. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Or if there's no V tag, no, it's always V tag in R1s. Yeah. So effectively, like when you look at, I won't show, but like some of these images have a lot of other tags, and we can debate whether we should move the others, but I don't think we need to. Is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Okay. But like I said, we can control that on a repo basis. So, but that's good. Even for myself, to avoid my own rate limiting impacting me verifying this, I'll restrict that as such.
We will get rate limited on the GitHub side as well. Last time when I did this, I got rate limited on the GitHub side. Yeah.
I need to look into that. Docker Hub itself is really crappy. How to like tell when you're rate limited? They don't tell you when. They just like right now with my account, it says, "Hey, you have 100 requests for 6 hours, and you have 0 remaining, and you have no idea when that 6 hours is up," which really sucks.
It's like not a rolling window or anything. So what's good is that when you're authorized, it is unlimited.
Well, I am an authorized Docker Hub user, and it is 100 in 100 pulls in 6 hours.
But you're not paying Docker Hub.
Correct. Yes.
That's what I meant to say.
And so, anyways, once I get to, I'll mess around with GitHub to understand those rate limits. But there's not a great way to
don't mess around with GitHub is much more like malicious checking kind of based. It's vibe checking, if you will.
Okay.
So they're like AI driven. So just be careful about doing things that make your IP look malicious. But it's really only when you're obviously systematically pushing an obscene amount. But they also know that that's a common use case, especially right now. So
right,
like.
Okay, look for updates. Yeah. Look for updates in the Slack channel, and then if you have any questions, if anyone looks at this and the README doesn't make sense, I did just take a quick pass at it. So feel free to tag me in Slack, and I'll happily answer any questions.
Cool. Anyone else got anything they haven't said here? If not, then so I guess over the next week or two, it's going to be KubeCon next week, so it'll be busy for a lot of people. But obviously, let's keep in touch on the Slack and on the issues. Hopefully, we've got tasks for people to do. I think there'll be a lot more interest in Kubeflow Notebooks 2.0 post next week, so we'll probably have a very busy meeting the following week. Maybe even on Thursday, depending on how timing works. So hopefully we can find new contributors to Notebooks 2.0. Anyone want anything before we end?
Hey Matthew, just wanted to mention something for finish. One thing that there is one PR for the front end to start using the real data coming from the BFF for listing workspaces instead of mocks. So with this, based on the complexity to run all the environment, I think we could start thinking about something similar to what we have in model registry to mock the BFF APIs to facilitate the development of the front end. I think it would be something that would improve the productivity for the front end.
So do you have a specific thing? So you want to merge the PR or you don't want to, or?
No, I blocked the PR because I think there is no quick way for the front end developer people that doesn't know Kubernetes on to run the controller and to have an end-to-end, just do the real calls.
Yeah, okay.
And one thing that I did on the model registry method that is super productive, I think I mentioned with you in the beginning, I used env test to create a mock, not just env test, but with env text and some hard-coded values to have a mock version of the BFF that don't run over the cluster, but runs with env test and a mock that speed up a lot the developer the front end. And we have on model registry front end people that doesn't has issues running Kubernetes in the past inside Red Hat, and now they become super productive because they run the BFF with the mocked version of we don't talk with the real controller, we talk with this mocked. It's not a real thing, but the team become much productive. And this is what
was
I
the
talk
issue
with Paulo.
they had running a local Kubernetes?
Because they are front-end developers. They don't know how to do this and they don't know how to set up math.
Okay.
It's a different world. It's the same thing that is hard for a Kubernetes guy working on controllers to set up an NPM build.
I know, yeah, I understand. I just wonder, like, I just think that maybe model registry is simpler than notebooks in a lot of ways, but
I'm convinced that we can have a nice mock that will enable Paulo and the team to work in the BFF.
Well, yeah, but I'm wondering, does it need to be with mtest? But yeah, maybe.
No, not with the env test. Env test is to have a BFF mocked.
Yeah, I mean that's or not. I mean,
and I can implement this for the team.
I do. I mean, I just do wonder. My only concern is still that, like, then we're maintaining a mock as well as the actual app itself when it is possible, like, with enough.
Yeah.
Like, even if we, like, maybe the issue is not that it's difficult. It's just that we need to be really video-driven guide of how to run a local Kubernetes cluster on macOS and Windows. You know what I mean, or something like that.
I think based on my experience, it requires a lot of maintenance and people struggle and block contribution. So I don't care.
But that is,
I don't care too much.
Worth the problem because duplicating the work otherwise. Unless you can automate the generation of the mock.
Yes, I can automate. I can mostly automate the generation of the mock and detect model registry. I don't write nothing with model registry. And we can use env test for most of the stuff, and the field that is auto-generated, we can just auto-generate stuff, and I have the good feeling that I can make work for 90% of the work on the front end.
Yeah, as long as it's like an automatic as much as possible.
Yeah.
Of course, the problem is that front-end developers are a really good source of user experience errors.
No, yeah, I understand, but the thing that as we're going to put more people in the front end,
sure,
this will enable us and them, because this model registry is one of the things that we saw people send pull requests like crazy there because it's so easy to run.
Yeah, I mean, if as long as it's automated, I'm happy with having a local run flag on the back end that says don't connect to a Kubernetes cluster, just pretend you're connecting to one.
Yep.
That's fine. Yeah.
So if you agree with the direction, I can start to work on a proposal for this.
As long as it's actually worth the time to do it, right? Instead of actually working on things. Yeah.
And I will personally maintain this with Paulo. Paulo will help me as well.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, if it's actually worth the time, yeah, like, yeah, it's just, I don't want to also get distracted. There's also going to be problems you're going to run into, which is that mtest doesn't do pod reconciliation. And so
yes, but for this,
it never be in any state other than pending.
No, but it's a mix of having env test and to get, and then we change or swap the data of the env test for something real.
Yeah, the only negative, as I was saying, is that having lots of people using this without trying the actual cluster means that we won't get reports like the error that I found where it's like, oh, when this doesn't exist, we don't see anything.
I understand, but it's either these or people don't maintain the front end.
Yeah,
the front end developers. You understand? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to. I just do wonder if we could solve the problem also by making it really easy to run a local Kubernetes. But
I think there's two different personas, but we need tilt for guys like Paulo to run the Kubernetes cluster and be responsible for all the front end experience, like the end-to-end experience. But we need also people that is just the front end doing tweaks that doesn't need to run the Kubernetes.
Like, I wonder if we could find some way to do it such that everything's in a Docker container or something. Like the Kubernetes cluster itself is in a Docker container, and then they don't think about it. You know what I mean? I just wonder, right? I don't know.
Yeah.
Because we'll see. I'm interested to see, because the problem is that a lot of
the mock is super easy to write those
and also
mocks.
The other benefit of doing a mock, though, is that you can then test GPU clusters when you don't actually have GPUs, because you would never have those locally, right? You're never going to have the NVIDIA GPU operator installed on a local machine, right? It doesn't make it really, well, you might, but it's unlikely. So I guess that's another case as well. The ability to mock data is useful.
Because usually there's two ways that people, the front end, Paulo, let me interrupt here. either people on the front end, they mock the front end calls at all and write their own mocks.
Which is worse
And-
because then it doesn't look like
Which
the backend at
worse,
all.
which worse, yeah. And we are putting a layer in the BFF, but this layer needs to be friendly for them, like to actually
Giving them a
ask
way
them
to make their own mocks in the backend under
Yeah.
the required JSON structure of the backend is valuable. I'll agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we create our infra there, and probably Paulo and someone else at Paulo's team will help maintain the
Like, I
mock.
wonder if we could structure the automation such that you have a cluster state folder, if you will, and then you just create like
Yep.
pod and
Yep.
resources in there with their status fields. You know what I mean? Or something.
Will be something like this, but just for us to start, and then incrementally we build up this mock based on the needs. Because the thing, the why I blocked the pull request is because as soon as we turn off that pull request, we require that Jenny, Paulo, and other people to be able to install the controller. That's why I block it. But if I can start to work in the mock, I can work on this, Paulo. Probably I recruit someone, and then we can have this.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, I'm interested to see how you want to approach it, but let's try and automate it as much as possible. Try and make it so that the front end people can still drive the creation either of, like, so I think the best case for what we're saying is just what I'm saying. Like, in the real world, especially once we start mocking things, yeah, actually, but when we do kubevert and GPUs and complicated rack structures, like, I can imagine that this is going to get like, yeah, mocking is going to be necessary. You know what I mean? Like,
so I prefer. I think the agreement that I prefer much more to mock on the back end than let
how do we
front end people
structure
mock
those
in the front
mocks?
end.
Like, that's the question I have.
But that's a follow-up question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, having effectively the goal should be that we have a flag which says don't actually connect to a cluster, instead connect to this virtual cluster. But then the question of how you define the current state of that cluster.
Yeah, and model registry is complicated because it's easy on the Kubernetes side on the model registry, but it's complicated when you talk with the model registry APIs because there is a lot of REST calls and states
and
there.
things go back and forth, right? That's my only concern.
But we create a structure in model registry that allow us to mock REST calls also with the model REST API, not just with the Kubernetes. We use env test for the Kubernetes because it's pretty simple there. It's just you get service and this sort of stuff. But we also mock the REST API that the model REST provides.
Isn't there like a couple of virtual Kubernetes cluster projects that are open source in the CNCF that are like mainly about for people who did crazy things like write controllers that don't interact with Kubernetes? And so I think there is one project, I forget what it's called, but perhaps that could help us. You know what I mean? Where like effectively because we need to store we could use env test obviously to store the state, but it means that we have to run a controller. Is that what you're planning to do? Like use env test to store the state?
I want to start to work with env test because this env test works so well for model registry. And I know that's much simpler, but I think env test with.
I love how Yuri is listing out in the chat. I think he's like KWOK it's not vCluster. I don't think it might be kubezoo. I don't know. Anyway, I don't know if that's necessary because they can be storing the state in env test. But what we need to do is have a control, because the problem is you're going to have to build a controller for pod. That's my biggest.
No, it's not. It's not a controller because we take on the when asked about the state on the env test, we take the env test reply. We say that env test is pending, and we patch with the data that we want. On top of it, it should be simple like this.
We also need to patch the workspace kinds and stuff as well, right?
No, no, but it's sure 3 objects we need to patch, and we patch the combinations.
I mean, yeah, if you've got a way that might work, I just want to I want it to be super clean, so much so that the front end people can make a request like, oh, I want to test the flow where they're running this, you know what I mean? And then like have some way to do it, and then think about how to make it easy. Maybe even like have a debug / call that the front end can make to reset the cluster or something, you know what I mean? Or something like that, so that they can, because you know how we've got that debug menu on the UI? Maybe we could have a kind of bunch of like, this is actually a really good idea, actually, thinking about it. We should have like on the debug menu on the UI, we should have a bunch of like reset the cluster to state known state 1, and then like change the cluster to known state 2, you know what I mean? And things like that. And then, so like effectively we just have a backend that is disabled in production that lets the backend pretend when it's in this pretend mode, that, you know what I mean, to like
in model registry we have 2 modes. One that is turn off the Kubernetes part env test, and another one that turn off and turn on the model registry APIs for the mocked versions. Is where we call with model registry API as a database, and we mocked everything, and it works pretty well. That's where Paulo comes from, because I showed Paulo where this stuff is working in model registry, and this will make us productive.
So, do you have a
Paulo.
pull request, or where are we going to do this?
No, I need to work on this, Paulo. So Paulo, you're probably going to work on this on start 2 weeks from now in April.
So are we going to, first off, a quick question. So are you going to have any APIs that are like debug APIs, or are you going to have all of the reset state of cluster being out?
I don't think we need a reset state for development. It's not integrated. It's much more simple. We are not testing the integration test, because for integration test, we need to run tilt to do the real flow. It's just to allow people to do a post, do a post for URL. We take the env test pending, swap for the thing that the Y needs, and put the result to open a pop-up. It's just those flows. It's much more simple.
I'm just wondering, I think there is value though to the front end being able to like jump to a bunch of known states, but yeah, maybe, who knows? Yeah, like it's because
I think start. My goal is to start simple, Matthew, to have the use case that we have right now, and then we can evolve in a more complex stuff.
Yeah. Just making it expandable is my thing. Anyway, cool.
Yeah.
Let's end the meeting. Thanks guys for coming.
Thank you.
Awesome. Talk on the Slack if you need anything.
See you.
See you guys.
Oh, Paulo, just one last question. Can you wait a few weeks, right? For this?
Yeah, I think we can.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah, I'll do this as soon as I come back for the conference. Okay?
Okay.